And we're live. Welcome to the Heart to Heart Show. I am Anita Barfoot Berg, my co-host Connie Lee, and today we are going to be jamming out on empath, anxiety, and God knows what else might come up today, right?
Exactly.
So I am just going to tag this out. Oops. Well, I'd love to if I could get in there, and I can't.
Yeah, so Anita and I were just on a call. Well, obviously, we're on a call now. And we were talking about, I was telling her
That too.
yeah, about my realization this week about anxiety, and then she has some cool things to say. So then I was like, let's just go live with this. So that's why we're doing this.
So yeah. Sorry. Okay. I'm gonna get this. I am gonna get this. Like, I don't know why it's so difficult to do technology some days, more so than others. Aha, I have it. So let me share it to. I'll just go to my coaching page for right now. Okay. So where do you want to dive in, Connie?
So I'll kind of go over my week, and then you can chime in on this after.
Awesome.
So I feel like I've dealt with anxiety my whole life. I was raised in this household where I feel like my parents were always kind of anxious about things. And I always cut it down to like, they left their home country, they came to a different one, and they were just kind of trying to adjust to the culture. And it was such a huge change for them, right? They had to learn English and everything. And so I thought, like, this must be normal. It must be normal to always kind of be in fear, right? And as I got older, I was thinking, like, this is still just normal, right? Like everything seemed normal. And lately I've become so self-aware of all the things that I do. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I change them, but it means that I notice them. And so one of my things has been that I feel like I'm always anxious about different things, always worried about the future, always like, you know, some nights I lay wide awake about different things. And even though I know, you know, law of attraction, I know that our thoughts create things, blah, blah, blah. Like I know all of that stuff, but I don't necessarily know how to stop that.
So can we dive in here and we'll kind of break this down piece by piece?
Yes.
Because, you know, I work better under pressure. No, I don't. So I guess my first question to you would be, do you consider yourself an empath?
Yes.
And so I think what I've realized in my work is that most people, including myself, as an empath, I thought that it was my job to just take on everybody else's feelings because I feel them, right? Like I'm very aware of the energies and the vibrations in the room. And I'm very aware of what people are feeling. And so what I didn't know as an empath is that I could decide to, so it's not even a tuning out, like I still keep my awareness on it, but I'm very aware now of what I'm feeling versus what's in the room and how there's a separation. And so it's a decision to notice, but not to take it on. It is not my job as an empath. It is not your job as an empath. It is not anybody's job as an empath to take on the feelings of the world.
So I know that you're like really highly tuned in, because there's times where I'll message you something and you'll be like, I already know that about me, right? Like I know that you're already feeling what I know, right? And but I think for me, I don't know when it's somebody else's. Everything feels like mine. I can walk into like a crowded place and feel sadness, and I just automatically assume that it's mine. Right? Like,
why would you do that?
I don't necessarily consciously do it. I think
Right.
so.
That right there is the juice. That we exist in the world in a very non-conscious way. We think that we have to take what we can get. We have to take what's given to us instead of being conscious creators and deciding what we want.
Right.
So, a lot of times, and I know that you can tell me if this is true for you, but a lot of times as I was, a new mom, my kids got sick or my kids were feeling hurt or sad or whatever. As a mother, I would take that on. Like, I don't want my kid to hurt.
Yes.
I want my kid to feel good. Let me take that on so that my kid's not hurting, so that they feel better. Is that familiar?
That is, but it's almost like we hurt together then, right? She'll come home upset about something and she's still upset and I'm also upset with her.
So I'm curious if that would be something that you would choose to experience so that you were meeting her at her level.
It is me trying to take it away from her, but it's not actually taking it away.
What is it doing?
Making us both unhappy.
Like, why would you choose that shit? Sorry, why would you choose that?
I think it's because I feel like, at least from that, I don't know. Again, it's not a conscious, it's until this moment, right? It's never been a conscious, right. Let's both be miserable together. It's
so I think that's gold right there, is that how many people are doing this because number one, they're not conscious about it. Number two, they don't know that they can do something else. Like, I was working with a friend of mine she's in the medical field. And so as an empath, she would take on all of her clients' shit, all of her patient stuff. She would feel it and take it on. And she would go home at the end of the day and she would be exhausted.
right.
And I had this conversation with her and I said, why are you choosing to do that? And she too said, I guess I didn't realize I didn't have to.
Right.
And so now she goes in and she stays high vibe like all day. And when we're high vibe, we actually are more helpful to those people around us who aren't, because we pull them up energetically. When we meet them, all we do is circle in misery together, right? Which is what you're saying.
Right. And I do notice that. Like, I can notice that if I'm feeling really good and I go into a store, the people I interact with perk up, right? Like, I notice when that stuff happens.
Yes.
I guess maybe I don't. So how can I decipher whether it's mine or not? Whether the sadness or the anger or whatever I feel isn't actually mine.
So noticing would be the first thing. I think so first of all, I think a lot of us are not taught to feel our emotions. We are taught to disconnect from our emotions.
Right.
So would that be true for you, that you've been taught to just suck it up, put your boots on, do what's got to be done, don't feel your shit, just move on and get over yourself?
Yes.
Is that okay? So of course, you are not tuned into your emotions.
Right.
And our emotions are actually, like, that whole emotional system is our guidance system. Like, actually, Abraham Hicks, this really started to make sense to me because I've always wondered about this, but the way Abraham explains it made the most sense to me. So let's say you just start to feel really sad, or you start to feel, let's take anxiety, because that's what we put out there today. You start to feel really anxious and you just keep pushing through the day, not really getting to the root of what the anxiety is. Sound familiar?
Yes.
Okay.
Very familiar.
And it doesn't feel good. And the more you go on, it seems like the anxiety builds. And really all that is you being in resistance, because anxiety fear. Everything's not fear, that's not love, blah, blah, blah. I could go deep into here, but when you feel anxiety, what is really happening is that you are not in alignment with your true essence. Your true essence, your spirit, your inner knowing, and your guidance system, your emotions come up to say, hey, we're going out of alignment here. We're not in this high vibe, good feeling place that is our true essence. And so the emotions come up to get our attention. We ignore them, we push them down. I like to say into the volcano. And then one day somebody says something that has nothing to do with anything, and this whole spew of emotions come up, and we totally lose our shit.
Okay, I can relate to that.
Right. Oh man, have I been there? Actually, I had one of these last week, which surprised me because I really am more and more in tune with my emotions. So it is really about noticing.
Right.
When you get sad, when you get anxious, when you get afraid, when you get lonely, when you're feeling anything, when you're feeling joy, when you're feeling happiness, just notice your emotions. Don't put it off as that's not important. Make it important that you feel good.
Right.
And so you walk into the living room, everybody in your house is in the living room, and you walk in there and you are in this high vibe place, and you notice that all of a sudden you feel different when you walk in this room. Well, that's your first sign that you're taking on their shit or their emotions or their way of being instead of staying true to your own. Now, a lot of times this happens because we want to meet people where they are. We want to be able to have connection. And we think that we got to connect at their level instead of staying true to ourselves. And when we do, we'll pull them up. Or if they choose not to get pulled up and they stay in their shit won't bother us. It's that we've decided we're not going to pull, like, we're not going to dumb ourselves down or meet them where they are. What's that bring up for you?
That's interesting, because that is exactly how it happens, right? I walk into somewhere else, especially after my morning meditation and my journaling and everything, and I'm feeling good. And then it's like I go to interact with anybody, I feel like shit. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh, it must be because it's the weather, or it must be because of whatever, right? And I just relate it to something. And I'm like, oh, I must be feeling crappy because now Abby's not listening to me.
Right. And do you notice that when you are like, you do that meditation, you get aligned, you're feeling really good, mm-hmm. and you stay there, that all of a sudden Abby is listening to you because you're in the vibration to get what you want?
Right.
Or if she's not, that you're responding to her differently.
Yeah.
Like, that's us being aligned, us being tuned in, tapped on, as Abraham says, us being in sync, aware of what's going on in our body, and having the desire to feel good is where the magic happens. It's where we do our best work. It's where we're so in touch with our creative flow.
Right.
And so feeling good. And interesting, you and I were talking earlier when we were not live about freedom. And freedom is the same thing. Like, most people think that when they get the thing they want, be that money, be that the new car, be that the new house, be that the new job, the new client, whatever, that will give them freedom.
Yeah.
But freedom is the feeling of not being controlled by, not allowing others to pull our vibration out. Freedom is really being in sync with, our true essence, our inner
right.
being, our inner knowing. That's where freedom happens. And when you make that a priority of being in alignment, the first thing and the thing that you're most attentive to, everything else falls into place.
Interesting. my mind's like blown open, so I need to process.
I know, I see it, I love it. But see, while you're processing that, I'm just going to go on to say, like, what most people don't get is that they think, oh yeah, but this is just the way it is. Well, that thought that this is just the way it is, this is all I get to have, is nothing more than a thought that you keep thinking.
Right.
Whether that thought came from your parents, whether it came from your spouse, whether it came from the circle of friends that you live in, it is a thought that you keep thinking. And everywhere you go, you will get evidence for what you're thinking, right? So of course that's all you see. Well, of course it's all I get to have. Look, that's all they get to have. That's everybody in my scope. It's the same for everybody, but that's the vibration that you're in. So when then you and I have a conversation like this, or my clients and I have a conversation like this, or I have a conversation like this with myself, and I expand myself into a new thought, it's like, holy shit, wait. So that thought wasn't true? Well, that's not really true either. That thought is just a thought, but we give so much credit, we give so much evidence, we give so much power to the thought.
Yes.
A thought doesn't have any power. What has power is what we believe, what we feel about that. That's it. It's so now it goes back to the feeling again, right? It's like, does this thought, as I'm thinking, like, oh, this thought popped in my head. What I do is, oh, does that thought make me feel good? Or does that thought make me not feel good? And if it makes me feel good, I know that it's in alignment with who I am, with my inner being, and with source energy. And if that thought doesn't feel good, I know that it's not in alignment and that I am actually in resistance to my true essence. Holy shit, right?
Yes. And it made me think of two things. So the whole saying that thoughts create things, but then we're talking about how it's actually the feelings that create things, right? So what is your take on those? So does a thought, so sometimes people will ask, like, when you feel something, what is the thought that's behind it? And it made me realize, as you were talking, that maybe when I'm feeling something, it's somebody else's. So there is no thought behind it. And that's why I can't find the thought that's behind it.
Well, I think there's always, like, I think the thought comes first and it equals a feeling. And then we decide if we're like have you ever got a thought in your head, like a really shitty thought, I'll say, like, it just doesn't make you feel good. And it just creates a whirlwind of more of those thoughts that don't make you feel good. Let's say I'm home alone and I hear a noise. And the first thought that comes is, oh, that was probably the wind. But the second thought comes, oh, I wonder if somebody's out there.
Right.
And if I stay with, oh, I think, maybe somebody's out there, then it's like, oh my God, did I just hear a noise? And it's like these thoughts just keep coming, right?
Right.
And the more they come, the more anxiety, the more fear, the more shitty we feel.
Right.
Now, if I had followed the thought of, oh, that's just the wind, and I would have made how I feel important, and I would have put my focus or my attention on something that would make me feel good, it would have been the end of it. It wouldn't have went anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's just my perception of making it bigger than it really is. And how often do we do that? Making a situation bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
So I think there's a million thoughts coming to us all the time. But I think it's what thoughts we give our attention to that really matters. And again, the more tuned in we are to how we're feeling, the more conscious we're choosing which thoughts we want to give energy to. Because then if we grab a thought that feels good, just like the thought that feels bad and the millions of thoughts that follow it, that's the law of attraction. You get what you're thinking about, so you're going to get more and more thoughts. But if I catch myself feeling that shitty thought and I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good. I don't want to think that. What could I think instead? What do I want to feel instead? And then as I'm leaning towards feeling better, the law of attraction gives me thoughts that feel better.
Right. So going back to the empath thing though, right? So when I go into a room and I feel frustrated or sadness or whatever, and it may not be mine,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go looking for what caused that, right? That's kind of where I was thinking.
So I don't know, looking for what caused it feels heavy to me already versus walking into a room and then feeling something, oof,
Mhm.
and then stopping and tuning in. What am I feeling in this moment? What do I want to feel in this moment? Versus getting caught up in that.
Yes. And I'm like, so in my in my patterning up till today,
I love that.
then I think that I would have gone looking for what created this in me and not realizing it could just be somebody else's. Do you see what I'm saying?
Which would immediately send you down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because now you're focusing on being sad. That's the feeling. You're focusing on being sad. So the law of attraction is going to bring you more thoughts of being sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to bring you more anxiety. It's going to bring you all those things you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I mean, I know that it seems just uncrazily simple, but it is us being consciously aware and choosing what we want to feel. It's ultimately it.
Right.
Now I can walk into a room and I can see with a sixth sense. So it's more of a feeling. I can feel sadness. I can feel thoughts. I can feel things going on in the room. It's hard for me to put this into words because there aren't words for some of this energy stuff, but I know what people are thinking. When I'm tuned in to my true essence, I know what people are thinking. It's like I grab the greater consciousness of the whatever's in front of me, right? And it's very, like, maybe it's because I've been doing this for so long that I'm very aware that that's not mine.
Interesting.
I know what's mine. I know what's in the room. And so my thought might be, maybe I'll scan the room and I'll be aware of if there's somebody that I feel a connection to that I might be able to help shift. Or is there something that in the service mentality, is there work that I need to do here? And if not, I say hello, I do what I can there to do, and I'm out.
Right.
Or if it's uncomfortable, I'm not going to stay. I might get a sudden urge for a coffee and I'll be back in a minute, but I never go back to. Like, I just totally honor what feels good.
That's interesting.
Whereas before there was a responsibility of, yeah, but I don't get to have what I want. This is all I get. So I have to just stay here and suck it up. This is why people don't leave their house. Why empaths want to stay home, because their anxiety is so big. Just the thought of going out there creates more anxiety.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Well, tell me.
Yeah. So I've been working from home for a solid year and like 4 months or whatever. And I started to worry, like, what if, because I'm finding more and more, I'm starting to be like, I don't even want to go out. I think one of my things too is that I want to manage everyone's feelings. I don't want to, not on a, like, I love doing this, trying to like manage people's feelings. It's a, thing I have to work on, in the sense of, I want people to be happy. And I feel like that's my job. And again, this isn't a conscious, like, I walk around being like, it's my job to make you happy. It's this unconscious thing that I just want people to like me, I think. And so anyways.
That was a really good following the loop there. I liked it.
Yeah, I just resolved some things for myself right there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, these past few months, I've been noticing that less and less I want to go out.
Mhm.
Part of it is that I don't want to deal with other stuff, you know? I feel like I'm already kind of anxious, and so going out is creating more anxiety. But then there's this part of me that's like, maybe I need to go and get even a part-time job that's like a few hours a week that forces me out of the house because
Well,
it's
isn't
big.
that an interesting thought that you'd have to do something that forces you to feel better? I
I
mean,
think
just think about that for a minute because people are doing this. Well, I'm going to force myself to feel better. Here's the thing that I want you to remember.
right,
Your true essence is feeling good. And the only reason you're not feeling good is because you're not tuned in to your true essence. So forcing it is not going to make you feel better. It's
right,
going to put you in an uncomfortable situation. And it's going to escalate your anxiety level.
okay.
So what could you do instead?
Find events that feel good, that feel aligned.
Right. I mean, that feels better just thinking about it, right? Like,
Right.
because the reality is if there's something you really want to do, you're going to go. You're going to find a way. I had one of my Native American teachers used to say this to me because he'd invite me over to a ceremony or whatever, and I'd say, we'll see. And he laughed at me one day and he said to me, "You are really a powerful creator." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, if you really want to be there, you will be. And if you don't want to be there, you'll find a million reasons why you can't." And I thought, holy shit, is that true about my life? Not just this thing.
Yeah, and it's true about anything, right? Like the the values factor by Dr. John DeMartini, he talks about the same thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
he talks about how like we will always do things in alignment with our highest values. And
Right.
so as much as we want to work out, if that's not one of our highest values, we're not going to do it. Right.
Right.
And so I think it
Right.
applies pretty much to everything. And going back to something you said earlier, I kind of find it freaky because sometimes you will be in my head about something and you'll call me out on things.
I don't know what you mean, Connie.
Yeah. So, so yeah, that is definitely one of your superpowers. That freaks
Well,
me out.
it is, but this is what most people don't get is that, it's really how you see things, how you view things, your perception of them that puts any value on anything. So people who, and there are a lot of them who say, "Oh, I'm an empath and this is a burden." Being an empath is a burden. And thank God I didn't know those people when I was trying to understand what this gift of feeling really was and how I could use it to help other people and how I could use it to help myself. Because had I bought into that story, I'd be in a completely different place right now. But I didn't have that story. I didn't have that belief. So then I chose to say, well, what is the good that can come from this? And so the good that came from it is that I can tune in to other people's thinking. This is what makes me such an extraordinary coach, is because if you come to me and you say, "I want X, Y, and Z," I can already see that happening in your future. And so now all I have to do, if I'm going to be a great coach to you, is to help you bridge the gap between where you are and what you want.
Right.
Because we're all powerful creators. And they're literally, we all get to do, be, and have whatever we want. But the only thing stopping us is our perception and a belief and our thinking that we keep thinking over and over again. That's not giving us the thing, right?
Right.
So it's the unraveling of the beliefs, yes, but it is, I mean, you've seen with me how quickly it shifts and how quickly you get your mind blown, which is really just a new thought. And then all of a sudden the doors open for you.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that when the doors open, that thing that you thought you wanted seems so small all of a sudden, because now what you really want is beyond that.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So it's never ending. So the empath piece, it's like if you choose to utilize it in a way that makes you feel good, that's a choice. If you choose to see the empath as a burden, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get the heaviness of the world. And you said something earlier about, I just want people to be happy. And this is trippy to me because, again, it's so simple, but this is the thing. You and I have had this conversation. If, what would be an example of, like, I don't want people to be hungry, right? I don't want people to be hurt by bullying. I don't want like these things, this humanity stuff. It really bothers me. It makes my heart feel heavy. Okay. And if I think about that, I'm going to see bullying and I'm going to see all these things everywhere I go. But if I take the time, and you know this too, that if we start our day out in meditation, if we start out our day getting in alignment and getting to a place where we feel good, the rest of the day is more apt. We have that momentum gone that it's going to go well.
Right.
But if we get in this thinking of God awful, or people are starving, or the aliens are going to come down and destroy the earth today, like if we start thinking about these things, we're going to get more thoughts like that. Right. So what I don't understand is when there's all these anti-bullying campaigns or anti-abortion campaigns, because energetically, all we're doing is giving more energy and more power to those things that we say we don't like. Are you following me?
Yes. And I agree with you. And I know, I agree with you. And I think what the problem is that people don't necessarily realize that, right? Like
right.
Mother Teresa said, don't invite me to an anti-war thing, but if you invite me to a pro-peace thing, I'll be there. Right.
And so I think the ultimate thing is that we get stuck in this thinking of what we don't want.
Right.
We're feeling anxious, and we get stuck in feeling anxious instead of stopping and asking ourselves, what would we rather feel? I'd like to feel calm. I'd like to feel peaceful. I'd like to feel like I can breathe really easily. I'd like to feel expansiveness. I'd like, and already just saying those words, I'm feeling different than I am when I'm thinking of anxiety.
Right.
And it is that easy.
And I think it opens this could open potentially a huge conversation, because shifting the focus, right, from what you are trying to fight, right? You're trying to fight or whatever, right? And instead of focusing on building up the things that you do want, right? And we could go on forever, because there's so many like charities and things set up, cancer, trafficking, whatever, right? All of this stuff. And you and I have talked about this before, where I will get on something and I'll focus on it and be really like passionate about wanting to change it. And you're just like, why are you focusing there? And that's when it kind of like shifts for me. It's like, oh shit, right? Like I need to go back to focus where I want.
And that is what the world teaches. It's like when I think about things like prejudice, and I see just this war building of people who believe one way and people who believe another way. And I'm thinking, you both want the same thing. Ultimately, you want peace. But we can't so this is where it comes back to us again. If you want to see peace in the world, the only way that you'll see peace, the only way that you will be a vibrationally match, the only way that you'll be tuned into that vibration is if you are peace. Remember, you find what you're looking for everywhere you go.
Yes.
And so it has to start with you. The only way to create world peace is for every single person, or the majority of people on this planet, to be peace. That's it. And it seems so simple, and yet, wow, do we complicate the fuck out of that, eh?
Yeah, we can complicate things so much, right? Like we were talking about this earlier, right? The complications of business, all of these people having these systems that work, and you know, and everything, something works for everybody in different ways and whatever, and it seems so complicated. And the idea that it can be so simple is almost unfathomable, right? We can't even, there's no way that this could be easy, is the thought that runs, you know?
Right.
It's
right. There's no way that it could be easy, but what if we decided that it could be? And the other part of that is allowing people to have their own opinion, allowing people to be where they are. So back to the empath, take it, you know, it's like you walk in the room and some people just choose to be sad. What if you just were okay with that? What if them being sad is no reflection on you or me? Oh, you want to be sad today? Great. Well, I'm not. I want to be happy. So hasta la vista, baby, or here, have a cup of coffee and maybe you'll change your mind. Whatever, you know what I mean?
right.
But we take it so personal when somebody doesn't agree with us.
Yes.
We take it so personal when somebody doesn't want what we want. Why? Who told us to do that?
Yeah, taking things personally is a whole other topic. Because I need to go back to one thing because I wrote it down. So you're talking about empaths saying it's a burden, and I feel like that throughout pretty much like my whole childhood, being sensitive was a burden.
Right.
Because everybody tells you, don't cry, you don't need to cry in front of people, stop crying, you know?
Yeah.
And I wanted to cry over everything, basically. Like, you know, everything made me sad, probably, like as a kid. Not, you know, anytime I saw somebody hurting or in pain or whatever, those made me sad. And as an adult, I'm like, wow, it's pretty amazing to be sensitive, right? To see.
That's good stuff.
But it's so, it's definitely something that I would like to, because my daughter too, right? Like she cries a lot apparently at school, like with her friends and stuff. And some of them have told her that she cries too much. And I was like, is there such thing as crying too much? You know, like you're expressing your emotions. Is that bad, right?
I think it would be amazing, Connie, if, you know, you have this mom group going on, and please tell our audience what it's called, because maybe they'd be interested in that. So just give me a little blurb on that, would you? And then I'll try to remember my thought.
Okay. The Messy and Meaningful Mom Life Community. So it's like, it's evolving, and it's basically like the messiness of life, but there's still always like meaning, there's lessons in all of this messiness.
I love it.
Especially with parenthood.
Yeah, and see right there, when you, as individuals, as we form communities who want to help our kids to feel and to not put that on as shameful that you're too sensitive, and instead help our kids to tune in to what they are feeling. Like, you are brilliant at this, at, you know, letting your daughter be part of, what do you want? Like, that's not how I was raised. Like, this is how it is and this is what you're going to do. But we've been so desensitized to our feelings. And then when you get an empath or somebody who is sensitive, we've been forced to shut it down. Like, you don't fit in. I remember feeling so isolated as a child because nobody got me.
Yeah.
I would go spend my time in the woods because that's where I felt like I fit in, like nobody was telling me not to.
Yeah.
But as we raise the consciousness and our kids become more okay with feeling, and then again desiring to feel good, teaching them that they don't have to take on the troubles of the world, that the world doesn't validate their worth, that they are worthy, teaching them all these things.
Yeah.
Because you also said that in your wanting to help people feel happy, that it was really about you having people like you.
Yes.
Right? So it's like this whirlwind that we create of, well, I have to fix them. I have to make them feel good because then they'll like me.
Yeah.
Well, what if you just liked you?
That's a good question.
What if you
Right?
didn't give a fuck what they thought? And that's not to say to desensitize or to be uncaring, but what if you just did it the way you wanted to do it? What if you just did it the way that felt good? You wouldn't have anxiety. You wouldn't be living in a restriction. You would step into the unlimitedness. You would step into the fulfillment. You would step into the freedom. You'd step into joy. Like, this is really what life is.
Right.
It's not out there.
Yeah. Yes. And that book, so I was telling you about Richard Doty's book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he talks about too. He's like, we're so externally focused and our whole world is happening within us. We need to start tuning in. And that's, for my daughter, one of the biggest things is like instilling within her like self-confidence and self-worth, right? But I have to model that. And for me to constantly go around like managing everyone's emotions and wanting to like change how everything feels, I can see so much of it in her too, right? Where she wants people to be happy. And I'm like, why do you want them to be happy? Like, why are you trying to do that? But I don't see it within myself, right?
You don't see you trying to make other people happy.
I don't stop, like I don't catch myself within it until I reflect on it. But when I see it in her, I'm like, oh, and it's being modeled to her.
That's brilliance, though. I mean, isn't that really the gift that our kids give us? Is
Yes.
to see that reflection. And if we didn't, again, fight it, if we're just like, oh, isn't that interesting? And then decided to do something so that we feel better, they would feel better, we would feel better, and we'd break the pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Seems easy. Let's just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that thing that I said? This is a whole other topic. Oh, taking things personally. And it's crazy because this is another thing that I've been really working on this year, because I think that, well, I take everything personally. And separating myself from that this year, and like, who knows what they have going on in their world. And I notice it like even like on, a video call. Remember that one day we were talking and I was like talking about something, I was getting excited. And then I got this text message and I was like, oh shit, like in my head. And you're just like, what happened there? I just kind of dropped, right?
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And recognizing that there could always be something going on in somebody else, right? Like there's always something going on and it isn't a reflection on me or you, right? It's not something to take personally.
Right. And again, that's freedom. That's really the freedom that people are looking for, is to not be, I was going to say to not be controlled by others, but really it's us allowing other people, it's allowing situations to control how we feel versus us being in control of how we feel, because you were like in that instant in such a high vibe place. And boom, just like that, your whole energy and being changed because of a thought that popped in your head and the feeling that thought gave you. And then the more you stayed there, like Abraham says, 17 seconds is all it takes for the next thought of law of attraction to give it to you. And then more and more thoughts came until I said to you, Connie, what the fuck are you doing? And you're like, wait, oh, I don't have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And you could have taken it personally, right? You could have been like, oh, what did I just do?
Right.
Right. Because I've noticed it too, when I'm on video calls with somebody and all of a sudden something happens. And then I shift and I'm like, oh, they seem upset. So now I'm upset. And then we're both upset,
Right.
So.
And it has nothing like, right there. Like it's, I don't know, to me, it's partial. So if I'm aware of how I'm feeling and I'm honest with you, the other day, I just totally I don't know. I was in a high vibe place one moment, and the next day I was so frustrated with myself that I couldn't, quote unquote, control how I was feeling. And all of this resistance was coming up, and it's like, oh, you should know more, you should be able to do this better. And I just wanted, I needed a moment to go away. And so my husband was gracious enough to watch my mom for a little while, and I went to the lake, which is ironically a place that in years ago when my life was kind of in mass chaos, it was a place that I went often. And I found myself sitting at the lake, and the tears just rolled down, like it was like a waterfall went off. And it was, I can't even say that I was crying, but this emotional thing was coming out of me. And really what, in hindsight, I feel like it's all this resistance again that I pushed down this volcano of things I didn't want to feel. And all of that just came up and out of me. And here too, people get stuck in, I have to fix this. There's nothing to fix. Just let it come up. You don't have to like wallow in it. You don't have to, when you go poop, do you examine the shit in the toilet? No, you just flush the damn shit down. But no, we like to just grab on and dig into every piece and say, well, why did I feel this? Why did I, why do we do that? Again, so I just let it come up. And it was 3 hours of a little bit of uncomfortableness that, somebody from the outside, they could look at me and say, oh my God, Anita, like you're depressed. You need to go talk to somebody. No, I just need a fucking moment to feel the feels.
Right.
And on the other side of that was freedom, like I've not accessed before because all this stuff was in the way.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then I reached a new level of freedom, a new level of expanse, a new level of thinking bigger and different and more in alignment with what I am. So it's like cleaning, it's no different than cleaning the clutter out of our house. We're cleaning the clutter out of our emotional system. But remember to flush it. Don't examine it.
Yeah. And I think that's, as you were saying that, I'm like, that's where I get caught up. After, I'll have like this emotional release, crying or whatever it is, and then stay there being like, oh, I need to see what all that stuff was, instead of just being like, oh, flush it down the toilet and move on with my day, right? Because after a good cry, it just feels good.
I know, I love it. And I love when you see it differently and I see the light bulb go off and you're like, oh, fuck, I don't have to do that. Isn't that interesting?
I know, there have been many light bulbs on this call that I have to like process them all.
I love these jams. This was a really good jam session, like just us free flowing here. It hopefully was useful to our viewers, and
yes,
it always expands me when you and I sit down in one of these conversations and just say what's really going on in life and giving each other an opportunity to see it differently. And
yeah, thank you. Thank you for this.
What's your, thank you. But tell me what's your biggest aha or holy shit or I can do that different? What is?
Honestly, I would say that the biggest thing would be for me to recognize, to be more aware of when I'm taking stuff on. And, instead of like walking into the room and just feeling what's there and going with it, being like, oh, like stopping and questioning, like, is this even mine to take on? And do I want to, right? And asking those few questions that you said, rather than just assuming like I have to now be angry. And so now I'll find reasons to be angry.
Yeah, so it really, I don't know, the more I see that whole feeling piece and how it really is guiding me on if I'm in alignment, the more I realize that it's okay to feel. And with that, not only is it okay to feel, it's okay to want what I want. And it's really okay if I don't do it the way that everybody else is doing it,
Right.
because their way is not my way. And then it, the full circle is allowing other people to feel and be in the vibration that because everything is perfect. There's nothing to fix. I think as healers, we get caught up in, well, yeah, but I'm here to fix the world. I'm not here to fix shit. I'm here to expand more and more into me. That's it. And as I do that, I help people.
Right.
Kind of takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Because
Oh, I can see your gears turning. It's so fun to watch you. I'm like, oh my God, Connie.
I know. I don't know. I need a nap. Yeah, because, changing the world or whatever, like that is a big thing to take on, right?
Yeah, we're not here to change the world.
Right.
Most healers are under the illusion that that's it. Well, I'm a healer for a reason, but we can only take others as far as we're willing to take ourselves. And the more you get into alignment with your true essence, which is love, which is spirit, which is energy, which is vibration, and the more you're aware of that vibration, the better your life will get.
Right.
That's it. That's all it is.
So if you need help making life that easy, talk to Anita. Because there's all kinds of resistance. Like, no, it isn't that easy. And yet I know, right? I've talked to you enough and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it myself. And yet I can still create these stories of why it can't be that easy.
I see so much now where I limit myself, and I see that it's just my thinking that's limiting myself.
Right.
We all do it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's amazing that you and I are able to get on calls and jam out and just open up the awareness, change the perception, give somebody, and you drop a new thought in that think like that's gold to me, because in that I expand, in that you expand, and we just keep getting better and better. So I'm very much in appreciation for you in my life. And
likewise.
I'm so glad you're not my VA.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other day I said something to my daughter because I don't remember what I was saying, but she's like, "Thank you, Mom. I'll take that as a compliment." And so I'm just going to say that right now.
That's right.
So,
and it was.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So anything else? Any final parting words?
Nope. It was an amazing call. I hope our viewers got something from it. I certainly did. And tune in. I don't know. We'll be back with some guests. Maybe Chantel and Maria will join us again one day, and we'll let you know when that's coming up. So thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
Peace out.
Thank you.